Welcome to the Bent by Knowledge podcast. Welcome back, everybody. I am sitting here with Vince Kreipke today. I always say your last name wrong, but I'm so excited to have a conversation with Vince today for a number of reasons. First, we are old colleagues from Florida State. You were like a year ahead of me getting your PhD, and we were, if I remember correctly, like the only meatheads in the lab that like to lift up
That's it.
heavy things.
Everyone else was a runner.
Yeah.
Just the worst. Or a dancer. Anne was a dancer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nope. Nobody likes to lift heavy things. So
no thickness.
None. So we definitely connected over that. And it's so funny. We were just talking before when we first got on how we, in those days, we both had short hair and now we have like these luscious long locks. Like we actually changed or something. Look at us go. I know, we're so mature and wise. Anyway, so I wanted Vince to come on to talk about a whole bunch of things, but and he'll mention his background with supplements, but he is really into supplements and industry and how supplements are created and knows a thing or two about a lot of what you guys buy into. And when I mentioned this to Vince, the first thing that he said was, you said something about nootropics. And in the back of my head, I remember I was like, I don't even know what that is. I had no idea what nootropics were. So I had to look it up. And the thing is, back in our day, I mean, a lot of these things that we call nootropics are just ingredients and supplements that we've already looked into, but I feel like I never remember them being classified as one thing. So I am super interested to talk about nootropics. But before we get there, I want you, Vince, to tell everybody about what your history is with exercise and nutrition and supplements and why you're the person to talk about nootropics.
Thank you, Brittany. It's really good to see you again, and it's good to be here. So I've been, as Brittany said, a meathead for quite some time, and it all starts in high school. But ultimately, starting with really enjoying my undergrad and thinking going into a physical performance. And that's both of our backgrounds is actually based in physical performance, exercise physiology. And so slowly building on that, originally working with collegiate athletes, working all the way up into Division I as a graduated assistant with IU for a while, mostly working with the wrestling team, track teams, but kind of getting my hands dirty in all of that, enjoying it so much that I needed more answers. I had a greater curiosity, so bounced around a little bit, trained with some more people, learned some great stuff from some fantastic mentors, and then decided that I need more knowledge. I'm a nerd, it turns out. So despite what 18-year-old Vince wanted, I turned out to be a nerd. So slowly built into that, Florida State, really got into performance exercise physiology. Our mentor, Dr. Mike Ormsby, if you don't know of him, look him up. He's got some great stuff. We're still learning from him. The dude is a fantastic mentor. He'll never leave me, and I'm sure he'll never leave Brittany either. But and he doesn't have a choice. So if he's listening to this right now, Mike, you're still on the speed dial.
You're locked in.
You're stuck. I don't know what to tell you. So Mike really helped us, see more than just the small picture of human performance. You'll see a lot of people get kind of niched into, they're either a nutrition person or they're, an exercise person or they're biomechanics person. And Mike really helped challenge us to see like a greater picture. In fact, I know my projects, many of the projects that went through the labs, was, it was a combination. It wasn't just, an exercise performance thing. It was a nutrition intervention plus an exercise intervention. So together we got to see kind of how the two complement each other and how they can actually counteract each other depending on which side of the research you're looking at. Mike is very good about, again, bringing the whole picture together. His actual, focus is more on like, what do you eat before you go to bed? And then how does it help you come around and perform the next day? How does it help your body composition and things that, trickle into that? And, those kind of different nuanced ideas really help, I think, shape that. I know they help shape me. They definitely, hopefully help shape Brittany as well. Yeah. From there, I did a quick stint as a professor in a small school at Wingate University in North Carolina, teaching again some exercise physiology classes, anatomy, so on and so forth. Continued to be within in the literature in teaching mode. And then from there, I have another great mentor, Dr. Rob Wildman. You can find him on probably every protein paper that exists, at least written in America in the last 25 years, I would suggest. He does a lot of work within the industry. He was, chief scientific officer for Dymatize for quite some time. He's also been involved in many groups. The American Herbal Products Association is one that he is he's making huge waves in. He sits on the sports nutrition committee. And these are monstrous groups. APA is a group that actually helps lobby for supplements actually in Washington. Oh. So when we talk about stuff like can food stamps help pay for vitamins? The answer, I mean, obviously many of these, underserved populations need vitamins. They not only are they underserved in socioeconomic, times or ways, but they're also underserved in nutritional intervention ways. Mm-hmm. And so if we can use different facets to help these individuals get the nutrition that they need, the better off we are. Another topic that we were discussing last meeting was creatine. Creatine actually got some heat in New York for potentially having to be like almost an over-the-counter type of drug. You need to be 18 to get it. You need to have, you can only get so much of it, blah, blah, blah. Based on the old idea that creatine's bad for your kidneys. Now, Brittany knows, as well as I know, that there are a lot of myths that circulate throughout nutrition, and especially with supplementation. And because of these and misunderstandings, and articles and case studies that get posted up, sometimes nutrition and supplements get a bad name, which some are well merited. You can't just walk in, pull something off the shelf, and just hope that it doesn't have steroids in it or some banned substance. There is some due diligence on the customer side, because unfortunately, and as we'll talk about, there are some people who are just in it for a quick buck, and they'll turn it over, and they won't really care that much what's in it, the quality of the ingredients, so on and so forth. That was a quick tangent. Back to me, my favorite topic. And then from North Carolina, I went to Texas to work for a group named Onnit. Onnit is a customer-facing company that puts out a multitude of great products, some that I've helped formulate, some that were already there when I got there. Aubrey Marcus did a great job with his due diligence and his startup. People may know this group because of a product called Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is like one of the big wave makers in the nootropic space. You probably have heard of this.
To cut in, I actually had a couple questions about Alpha Brain, so we're going to have to talk about that when we get to that section.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I spent the entirety of my tenure defending and supporting that thing. In the industry, there's going to be always one thing that really makes your money, and you do everything in your power to make sure that thing sleeps extremely well at night, even though you probably won't. So on it, People may have also heard of Joe Rogan's podcast. He's a big influencer when it comes to Onnit. So we'll actually bounce ideas off him. We'll let him try stuff, and if he likes it, he's in, and if not, he'll tell us that it sucks. Like he will just straight be like, "This is shit," and we'll be like, "All right." So at Onnit, like I said, really made their wave in the kind of cognitive performance area. Aubrey is one of the big kind of a Silicon Valley kind of person, very into mental performance, learning to be 100% as a CEO, able to, tap in, type out hundreds of pages, go through multiple reports and, not blink about it. So because of that, they developed two nootropics specifically. They have Alpha Brain, which again, like I said, is their breadwinner, and then a nice second one is called New Mood, which is more of a stress formula. So that kind of helps you tamper stress. For those of us who are stressed right now, if you're in a cold state and you're locked in and you don't have water or your pipes just burst, you're probably in a stress state. So maybe some of these ingredients can help you get there. After that, I've recently accepted a job as a research scientist, I believe is my title. Yeah. But basically just combing the literature, making sure that, I'm helping support people who want to make products in the best way possible, allowing them to, have access to the information, talk through what they actually want to build, and then go through it. The group I work with now, Innovative Labs, is actually called a co-manufacturer. A co-manufacturer is where people go to make the thing. So a lot of these companies are just office spaces, and then they will actually contract with a manufacturer that has the technology, filling machines, mixing machines, water machines, like all kinds. The factories are gross. We actually have to have here at Innovative Labs, we have 3 locations across the state of Utah that do different things. Everything from filling gel packets to little shots to RTDs. Like it's the gamut's there, and it's everywhere. So, but most places that you see on the shelf at GNC, or you see in Amazon, or you go to your local, your website store and you have your group, chances are good that they're not making it at that location, wherever they say, like Onnit's in Austin, Texas. They're probably making it at a various group of places, and they're either just dropping it into the Amazon warehouse, or they're storing it in their warehouse to ship out from their website or whatnot, or to the Walmart website or warehouse, however they want to do it. But that's that's me in a nutshell. It's not a small nutshell, and unfortunately the shell's getting bigger. But that's kind of where I'm at. And the topic of nootropics today is a big one. It is booming in the industry. It's suggested that in the next 2 to 4 years, it'll be a $5 billion industry within itself, within the idea of supplements and cosmetics. If you ever have the ability to go to one of these shows, they're disgusting. They're huge. They'll fill a whole convention center in Vegas, and they'll still be bursting at the seams. And also in California, those are the 2 really big ones. 95,000+ people in one city at one time.
Wow.
Like I said, absolutely disgusting. COVID runs amok. It's great.
Yeah, nootropics, and like I said, when I was doing my research on this topic, I was finding that a lot of what we've already looked at and maybe supplements that we take would fall under this category. And it got me more and more interested, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these benefits, like I need to be taking some nootropics. So I'm really excited to talk about it. But in general, like a broad definition of nootropics would be a natural or synthetic substance that can be taken to improve mental performance in people. So it's really something that's going to help brain function in any way that you think that you can think of. So let's start with just some really basic, like frequently asked questions, because I think a lot of people that think about supplements are concerned about a few things. And then after that, we'll get into the real nitty gritty and the cool, maybe supplement ingredients or supplements like already created supplements like Alpha Brain. And we can sort of dig into what science says about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So they are designed to improve your mental health, but outside of that, are there any potential, I know this probably could be a wide ranged question. Is there any potential that there's negative effects of these supplements, nootropics?
Right. So, great question, right? No one wants to, mess with their brain and then all of a sudden they're like a Frankenstein or a zombie. Yeah, and just like with all supplements, you have to be extremely aware of what you're doing. You don't want to overdo anything. And these adverse events can happen anywhere from, just a real short stint. Many of us have probably experienced the I drank too much caffeine. Yeah, I almost did this morning trying to get ready for this. And it's just a weird nausea, and you just don't feel good. And that's a lot of it. A lot of things are going to ultimately be just, all of a sudden you just feel icky in some way, shape, or form. We talk about, and we can expand that idea of adverse events. There are the ideas of overstimulation. We have, again, feeling sick, but we can also, if we want to expand that idea, we can talk about how overstimulation actually negatively affects performance. You'll see it in caffeine studies, and you'll also see it in general in sports psychology, that if you actually take an athlete and you overstimulate them, or anyone who's about to perform, they'll actually perform worse. It's like an inverted U. Mm-hmm. So as you stimulate them, they get better, and then all of a sudden they're just too amped, and then all of a sudden they don't perform. I know I've experienced this with nootropics, but ultimately in a pre-workout, if you take one of those that have the mega dose of whatever in it, I think Bucked Up's a group that has about 400 milligrams of caffeine plus in it in a scoop. Yeah, no big deal. So I took one of those once just to, because I needed something to pick me up, and it picked me up and then threw me through a table. So so that kind of stuff can happen. If you want to look on the other side, the way I kind of look at the category of nootropics, I actually divide it out a little bit further, and I actually look at basically stimulants, those that'll raise you up, like a caffeine kind of idea, calmers, those that will kind of help you cool out, especially respond to stress, and then those that are more based in longevity, so those that are actually going to help support brain function deeper down the line. And we can kind of tease through that a little bit, but if we switch from stimulants to downers as I like to call them, just keep it in the spring break terminology. They can, again, if you want to talk about an adverse event, they can calm you down, but then they can also really calm you down. So all of a sudden you have more of a fog about you. You have a little less alertness. Those have been reported in the literature as well. And most importantly, as I said before, supplements are extremely individualized. That's for everything from performance to general health to nootropics. You have to make sure that you are starting into this realm in a slow fashion, especially because you can really overdo it really quick. So take it easy, especially when you're going into nootropics, and be aware of what you eat. Be aware of any medication that you're taking. Are you pregnant? Are you diabetic? There's a long list of stuff that you really have to pay attention to, because we can start to see interactions between drugs and these supplements, or just conditions in these supplements. And always make sure that I'm not a huge fan of self-medicating, or so always make sure that you have at least someone that like has some information that you can touch base with. Um, Reach out to Brittany; she'll steer you at least in a pretty good direction.
I'll tell him to talk to
But
you.
yeah, and then just send them to me, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, put it in your mouth, see what happens. Um, so so yeah, just be aware that that you as a person are special. You're a snowflake, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And write down, did I have a huge meal before I took this? Did I just wake up and pop it in my mouth? All like those two things alone can create a completely different day. So
Yeah. So
when
it
it
sounds
comes
like,
to
from what it sounds like, the gamut of potential for side effects is much like any other supplement out there. So it's not going to be too crazy.
exactly.
Yeah, and as long as you're responsible and, like you said, paying attention to your body, what you've been doing, and paying attention to what the label says, like don't take 2 scoops if you're only supposed to take 1, you should
Yes.
be relatively good to go. So that's good to know.
Absolutely.
Um, Now, with that in mind, I know you mentioned there's uppers, there's downers, and then there's longevity ones. So 3 different categories. That's really helpful. So my next question may be another really broad question, which is how do they physiologically work? And we might be able to get to it a little bit further, but I'm assuming just in general, because it has to do something with brain and mental functioning, that it's, physiologically working with like hormones and neurotransmitters and changing chemicals around a little bit um, within a safe net. So, can you talk about that
Bingo.
just a little bit?
Yes. So because there's such a wide span of things that are now considered nootropic, there's a wide span of mechanism. Unfortunately, I can't be like, yep, they all work through that
Yeah.
cycle and we're done. So if you want to go, I mean, we can kind of place each one in kind of a basket, if you will. We can start with longevity. That's very simple. And so if you look at it, a lot of the longevity things are ultimately about protecting the nerve cell and protecting the brain cells. So the idea is just like with your body experiences inflammation, your body experiences, radical oxidative species and, other, stresses of that sort in the body. So that goes up into your brain and it has the exact same effect. Your brain is a bunch of cells, just like the rest of your body. And these things have negative effects in the brain. So then if we can supplement with ingredients that actually help negate those in some way, at least hamper them a little bit, right? There's always a balance. We don't want to go too far into being antioxidated, but we also don't want to have like this inflammation that just lives in our brain either. So if we can help basically maintain the health of the nerve cells in the brain, we're going to see a much longer trajectory of performance down the line. We're extremely good now at making the body go the distance. As long as you have a healthy diet, you regularly exercise, you take care of yourself, get checkups, all that stuff. Chances are good you're going to make it pretty deep in the age in the calendar. So we want to take our brain with us. A lot of people are worried that they see like Alzheimer's and dementia, 2 terrible diseases. So we have a body that's functioning, but we have a brain that's no longer, processing, remembering, applying, responding. And we want to make sure that we can maintain that. So ultimately, longevity stuff, you take it now. You're not going to feel it. It's not going to be some miraculous, oh my God, I feel 12 again kind of idea. It's the idea of, we just want to maintain what we have and keep it healthy, just like regular maintenance on your body does the same thing. And again, research has suggested that regular exercise actually helps brain function. So make sure that we are, doing the correct things in our life and not just leaning on these ingredients and being like, oh, well, I took my, vitamin C today, or I took my cat's claw today, and so I should be fine. No, take care of yourself. Don't be an ass. Get your sleep, get your water, eat healthy, exercise. All those good things are going to help promote brain function way later down the line.
Yeah, and you mentioned before we even started talking too that I think people sometimes forget that supplements are designed to be a supplement and to not, in the sense that, like you're saying, you should be taking care of yourself, you should be exercising, you should be getting a good diet with whole foods and things like that. And then if you need to cover your bases in some way, like you're talking about individuals with Alzheimer's and issues with mental processing, if you need to supplement what you're currently doing, then you can take supplements on top of that. So
Absolutely.
I think it's an important note for sure. So you talked about longevity. What about the uppers and downers in terms of physiology?
So normally when we talk about an upper, we're talking about some kind of stimulant. And so again, when I kind of space these out, I think of these stimulants as something that happens within 30 minutes of taking it. I have to cram for my exam tonight. I don't have to cram for it 2 nights later. If I take it and it doesn't give me the energy, the focus, the attention that I need right then and there, I'm boned, basically. Yeah. So we're looking at ingredients that are going to have more of an acute effect instead of more of that chronic effect that we talk about with longevity. So these are normally going to play with different parts of, mental, nervous communication within the brain. So we want to look at, specifically, we can talk about ingredients that help the acetylcholine pathway. The acetylcholine is a communicative neurotransmitter that goes from basically one neuron to the next. And there are different supplements that you can give yourself that are going to affect basically different parts of that system, just like there are. We talk about blood flow, and we can talk about, there's arginine and then there's citrulline. And if you look at them both together, they both fall within the same pathway to NOS production, right? So the idea is that we can do the same thing with a lot of different other processes in the body, especially the brain. So we can give the brain the building blocks to make acetylcholine. So that would be ingredients like Cognizant is a branded ingredient that's been shown to basically give choline to the body to allow it to create these. You can eat eggs. Actually, eggs have been shown to actually help promote acetylcholine. And then there's another ingredient called alpha GPC, which is another basically form of choline building block. So we can give the body the ability to build it, and it'll take it, package it, send it down the line. Now we can send it down the line, right? And it trickles out. And then basically the way your brain communicates, or all nerves communicate, is you have a messenger, then you have a receiver, and you have a space between it. And in between that space, the neurotransmitter gets dumped, and then it gets, picked up over here, and then it fires down the line, continues. And then that part, after it's touched that brain, basically that cell, it gets metabolized in some way, shape, or form, which is a good thing. We don't want to be stimulated all the time, or we would lose our minds, right? But there's also this space, and there's also other chemicals within that space that break down those compounds after they've been released, even before they get to the second messenger. So again, if we're talking about acetylcholine specifically, it's called acetylcholine esterase is the compound that will basically metabolize acetylcholine before it gets to the next nerve cell. So if you take an ingredient that affects somewhere in that process, like huperzine A, it actually is an inhibitor of that acetylcholine esterase. So if we put a brake on a brake, that means we can go, right? 2 negatives equal a positive. So then we have a greater concentration of acetylcholine within that space, that synapse, and then so we can have continued firing from this guy down the line into whatever we need. So that's just two real simple examples of things that help for stimulating. Another one, if we want to switch gears a little bit more and talk about some of the stress relieving ones, we can look at multiple pathways as well. One is the Gaba pathway. Gaba basically acts as a brake on the body, on the brain. So those of us who seem to be more chill seem to have more Gaba in our system.
Is that you?
What?
That's you, Vince.
Yeah, just so chill.
Gaba.
So that's one of the ways. And so we have ingredients that will actually act upon that system. Others are, that's one of the main ones. The others can be, if you want to take it to a broader, more systemic response, we find ways to break down, or not necessarily break down, but, mediate stress response hormones like cortisol, right? A little cortisol is good, especially in a short amount of time, right? You need cortisol to exercise. You need cortisol to, run away from the dog that's chasing you. It actually, helps you be more aware. But if we have it continually, we now have a heightened state of stress. That's a bad thing. And that continues to act on the brain. So if we can hamper that a little bit and have more of a systemic approach to it, we can bring down cortisol and then hopefully have a better, more healthy stress level in the brain as well. So again, there are a lot of different things that do a lot of different things, but those are some really, really simple ideas to promote.
So it sounds like these supplements are just really amplifying processes that are already happening. So
Bingo.
It's sort of natural in a way. Like it's not going to go way out of the realm of what the body physiologically should be doing. So
right.
That's also good.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know there's this hot topic today with natural supplements. So would you classify nootropics as natural, or are there some synthetic ones?
So, right, there's, if we look at the umbrella of the idea of nootropics, it's basically any compound that helps you, your brain function to the highest level. So we can look at, ultimately, if you take one half step down from that, we can split them into, synthetic, more pharmacological groups, and then we can look at the more, natural S groups. And remember, it's ultimately a compound. So there are some compounds that exist naturally that can be then created synthetically. Caffeine is a great example. Caffeine exists in coffee, right? It exists in tea. It exists in, multiple plants. But we can also make caffeine in the lab. And it's very important that you kind of know the difference. People look at coffee, right, as basically a liquid caffeine, right? And actually, there's been research that would suggest that those who drink coffee actually have better cognitive processing further down the line, because coffee is more than just liquid caffeine. It actually has all of the polyphenols that help, support the brain and have maybe antioxidative capacity and so on and so forth, anti-inflammatory capacity, and, help push down the way. As such, coffee is great. Coffee exists, and we do have the ability to extract that out of coffee. So you kind of have to, limit yourself on what you call natural. It has been suggested that if you do anything to the thing, it is no longer natural, right? So if you, for example, lemon balm grows naturally in the ground. It's an herb that will help you calm down. But if you make it an extract, right? So if you don't want to eat 25 leaves of lemon balm a day and you just want to take a little pill, you can actually boil it down, take the compounds out of it. It's a big, long, food science process, but you basically take the compounds out of it, make them concentrated. and now you have like a 500 to 1, 5 to 1, 1 to 2, whatever ratio you want in this little pill or in this little, functional food. And now now you have all those benefits without having to go through all that extra work of, finding 25 leaves.
Interesting.
So you have to kind of be aware of what you're talking about when you talk about natural.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of these things exist in nature, but depending on who you are and how stickler you are to the rules, I'm more of a, spirit of the law than the word of the law kind of guy.
That sounds very
until I
Vince
need
of
to
you.
be until I need to be word of the law, and then I'm very word of the law. So yes, in my mind, yes, there are a lot of natural options, and depending on which court of law you're in, they may not be natural. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it looks. But
Yeah.
pharmacy is definitely not 9 times out of 10 not natural.
Right.
It's made in the lab.
So it doesn't particularly matter, which is good.
Right.
Because I think people get way too attached to that. And I'm like,
People get attached to a lot of weird stuff in the
stuff.
supplement world.
Super
Yeah.
crunchy.
Natural, non-GMO.
Yeah. I'm like,
vegan.
just eat it. Just pop it.
Yep. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I promise. You're welcome.
If you're
Just
not, call Vince. Like, all things will be good.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so they are supplements, and we know that, especially in athletic organizations, supplements are highly criticized, can be highly criticized because they can put, an athlete above another just from taking that supplement. And so there's this whole list of banned supplements that athletes can't take. And I don't even know how many times a year it gets updated, but I feel like it's very, very often. So of the supplements that you know of, nootropics, do you know if any are banned by some of the most common athletic organizations?
So when you start looking at that stuff, you have to be extremely aware, again, of what you're putting into your body. There's a whole talk and a whole soapbox about the purity of your supplement. If you're an athlete, if you are a serviceman, if you are or a woman, if you are, a military individual, make sure that whatever you're putting into your body is tested by a third party, or at least is in a third party testing program. Some great examples are the NSF program. LGC is a group that has Informed Sport and Informed Choice. That's the green check mark that you may see on the side of your bottle. It's also a little yellow runner guy, it looks like sometimes. So those are two. The difference between the two is that one is tested every batch, and the other is tested basically on a rotating process, depending. So those are two more, and then there's one more called BSCG, which is the Banned Substance Control Group. All three of these organizations do a fantastic job of making sure that what people say is in the supplement is in the supplement, and then also that there are no extra little bonuses, if you will, in the supplement as well. There are a lot of things that live on that list that aren't just like steroids. It's also like compounds of metabolites of those steroids and stuff like that. So you have to be extremely aware, because a lot of these organizations have a zero tolerance policy. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but CBD has boomed on the market, right? People suggest that it can be, a nootropic. I've seen the research that suggests that it is a nootropic in ways of being like a hamper or a downer. Stress relief, we should probably say. But with that comes the potential for THC. THC is the thing that gets you banned from many of these organizations. It's not CBD itself. So you have to be extremely aware of that. So make sure what you're taking is actually there. Now, outside of that, if caffeine is one that I believe which sounds crazy, right? Caffeine is a banned substance, but it's actually caffeine at X amounts of dosing. I think it's something ungodly. Like you have to have like a gram of it in your system when they test you.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's a lot. But caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours too. So if you take it in the morning and you get tested at, you take it at 8 and you get tested at noon, there's the potential that you could have that full gram. Now, all that being said, there is research that has been done on people that take a gram of caffeine. There's no way I would sign up for that study, but if you want to see what the top of the mountain really feels like, go for it.
No, thank you.
That is not an endorsement to go drink a gram of caffeine out of.
What's that, like 10 cups of coffee? Something like that? Because there's about 100 to 200 grams per cup. Yeah.
It's about 5 Red Bulls.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah.
5.5.
But I can imagine that some athletes would, like, if they're in preparation, or servicemen and women, like, if, they can get caught up in it. So yeah, doing your due diligence and making sure you're within limits.
So the actual ingredients themselves, there are a few. And again, if you are an individual that does participate, and it's not so much because of the actual ingredient. Sometimes the ingredient is a metabolite of something else. When we were formulating one of the newer products at Onnit, I believe, we were looking at, I think it was called phenylalanine for a minute. It's PEA, I believe, in like a real quick, shortening abbreviation. But basically, that ingredient is a metabolite of meth.
Oh.
So meth is banned in most things.
No
so I mean, it's great. It works. It's fantastic. But because it's a metabolite that could suggest the use of methamphetamines, it's banned. I believe the ingredient that everyone was taking back in the early 2000s for weight loss was another thing that wasn't that just straight amphetamine?
Amphetamine,
yeah.
It was an amphetamine. I can't remember what it's called now, but yeah.
But basically, again, killed people. So I believe that's banned as well.
Yeah.
Most of these things on the ban list are banned for your health. And then obviously the purity of sport. Yeah, please don't. Yeah. So there are some ingredients that may, make it on that list. Be sure that you are very aware of it. Now, those who scrutinize individuals for taking supplements so they can perform better in their sport, I'm not the biggest fan of those individuals. I don't see why, eating something, what you put on your plate is, just as important as taking a supplement. Everyone drinks coffee in the morning, it seems like, or some form of caffeine. They slam a Red Bull, all the good stuff. They drink tea. Don't tell me that you're not supplementing your day and you're holier than us. You're not. I'm going to find something that you're supplementing with. Yeah. I mean, sugar can be considered a supplement if you put it in the right spot in sport, right? Gatorade was basically, yeah. Excuse me. Gatorade was created so that the Gators could, perform better, and they drank it during the game and at halftime, basically showing that, electrolytes and sugar will make you perform better for longer, which in theory could be considered a supplement. Mm-hmm. So you just have to really be careful when you start pointing fingers and starting to try to roast people. Okay, so I eat 2 extra chicken breasts a day so I can get my protein up. Is that a supplement? It's just me getting on a tangent.
Yeah.
But again, back to the point. Be aware, if you are an individual in a tested situation, what the list is. 1, who your regulating body is. 2, and who regulates your supplements. If it's nobody, you're in a bad spot. If it's somebody, make sure that they test to the same levels that your group tests to. I know that LGC basically works with all the WADA labs, which is the World Anti-Doping Association group. And SF works with, Major League Baseball is one of their big clients. So just really be aware of what your tests are, how they're run, and what ingredients are on it. And then and don't get too crazy, right? All of the ones that have good, solid research behind them aren't that crazy of an idea.
No.
Caffeine, best thing that ever worked, right? We've
Almost
been taking
everybody
it for,
uses it. Yeah.
everyone uses it, and they're like, it's a drug. Well, I mean, kind of, because you're addicted to it now, just like the rest of us. But but it works. Like I can find very little research that would suggest that caffeine doesn't work, especially when taken at the appropriate doses.
Right.
There's research that suggests that as little as 25 milligrams of caffeine, which is nothing, can actually help improve mood in general. Like that doesn't even get to physiological mental performance. So like, what do you want?
I know. Let's circle back to regulation. So this is, I think, probably the last question before we get into the really cool ingredients and actual supplements. But can you talk just in short about how nootropics are regulated in general, and maybe some of the things that you should look out for? Like you've already mentioned some, so that you can make sure that you're checking your box to say that this supplement might be, good and safe for me to take.
So again, nootropics are regulated in the same way that supplements are regulated. Again, for the most part, a Coca-Cola has caffeine in it, but it is not regulated to supplement standards. It's regulated towards, more food standards, right? So you have to be aware. If you look on the back and it says nutrition facts panel, you're going to have a whole different set of regulations than if you look on the back and say, it says supplement panel. So that's something to take into note. Now, when it comes to caffeine, there was the government has made some issue. I don't remember when they made it, but ultimately the idea is that if it has caffeine in it specifically, they have to call out how much caffeine is in that ingredient or in that product. So if you ever look at the back of a Monster, it's in some fine print on the side, but it'll say like 145 milligrams of caffeine. Same thing with Bang, Rain, like whatever you have that has caffeine in it has to in turn tell you how much caffeine's in it. Now, that's not the same for a cup of coffee. Cup of coffee is actually regulated differently across the entirety of it. I don't even think coffee has to have a nutrition facts panel. It just says this is coffee. Drink it. So again, coffee is kind of like play at your own risk, right? Depending on like how concentrated it is, but we kind of have a general idea of how much caffeine is in different types of coffee for the most part. So you want to make sure that again, it's calling out something that people could be specifically, sensitive to, like caffeine, something along that line. People don't want their kids to be jacked up on all kinds of caffeine, because then that in turn raises their stress level, and then they have to go buy a stress supplement. So ideas like that, that's where regulation kind of plays in. Again, when it comes to supplements, they are regulated through GMP practices. So there are people that will actually come and audit not only like your warehouse, like the FDA will come and look at, like all of a sudden they'll just be like, let's see your stuff. They'll actually show up to people's doorsteps basically. And then they scatter like rats. But then, GMP is a certification that people look at warehouses. So storing warehouses, are these ingredients are allergens on top of non-allergens, right? Because if that case breaks and all of a sudden it's in a non-allergen, and then I'm scooping stuff out of non-allergens, not knowing that there's like soy in it, and then I put it in these pills and I send it out there that says no soy, and Someone who's allergic to soy in some fashion takes it. Now all of a sudden we have a terrible adverse event because, of bad practices. These, like everyone used to say that, supplements are the Wild West and you can get away with anything, just put it in a bottle and sell it. That's not true anymore. We have GMP regulations. We have for both manufacturing and storage at warehouses. Amazon's got to follow it. We here at Innovative Labs have to follow it. Storing stuff at Onnit, we had to follow it. Other groups will actually come and look at your practices. NSF is one of those groups. They'll dig through it, and it's like a 4-day, depending on how new you are or how bad you were the last time, it can be up to like a 4-day audit where they just dig through all where you're, where do you keep your papers? Do you have, what does your quarantine process look like? What does your recall process look like? What does, it's actually a lot more stringently regulated than what people used to think, which has kind of bled into 2021.
I'm so glad you say that too, because Sam, who we talked about before we got on here, got on a previous podcast, and he literally said those same things. He said people think that it's a wild, wild west, and it's not. It's actually pretty stringently regulated, which is good to know, because I mean, people are taking these things like almost at their own risk. So you want to make sure that everything is safe.
And especially if you're buying at a big box store, Whole Foods isn't going to risk their reputation on some, I just filled this in my bathtub, trust it kind of person.
Yeah.
There's a huge long checklist that you have to go through. Even when we were trying to get products into Whole Foods, we had to, go through actually our justification for the claims that were on the bottle. So you can't just say something, you have to actually be able to support it. If you want it to be in a big box place like Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, Kroger, whatever your store is, right? But also there's the ability, not only are, the government's regulating you, there's also class action lawsuits, which are fantastic. One of the big ones that I was talking about with my class in when I was teaching at Mary Hardin Baylor in Texas, it was basically the claim of the Bang, I believe it was the Bang guy, said that Bang can cure Alzheimer's, like came out flat, said it, couldn't believe it, because there's like super creatine in it or something like that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on the podcast, but it happened. It was in the news, so you can go look it up.
There you go.
But Monster started to sue them because basically that is an FDA, right? It's an FDA problem because it's a drug claim that we talked about. If anything, like improves a condition specifically like Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes. Be very aware if you see a drug claim on a supplement website, fact panel, label, anything like that, because those are not within the regulations of the government, of the FDA, and in turn, they're either going to get in trouble by the FDA, or some lawyer is going to get a hold of that and sue that individual in some way, shape, or form. So they may not be around one way or the other for much longer anyway, which is great.
I love
so just be aware of that.
Bang's my favorite energy drink.
I mean, I love them too. I'm all about it. I'm not, but VPX is a much bigger company, right? Because Bang is part of VPX, and they've made it through multiple more storms. I don't know where that lawsuit is ultimately landed. They may have settled out of court. I don't know, but that was a big back and forth. Again, you'll see like there's been a lot of COVID-19 claims recently. And if you go to the FDA website, there's like a whole section now on people that are just making crazy claims, and they're like, please stop doing that. There was one of the big people that really got me an example of, there was a dude in, Alabama, Arkansas, one of those states. And it was a preacher who said that some kind of silver could actually like protect you from or cure you of COVID, and like huge, you know, late night television, buy one, get one free kind of thing. And he got roasted.
Uh-uh.
So they're always watching. It may take them a minute to catch you in the net, but they will catch you sooner or later, or someone will, and you'll
Right.
either be broke or you'll be going through a lot of different backwards processes trying to fix it.
Yep. So that's good. That's comforting. There is regulation. That's what I wanted to
There
know.
is regulation.
Yes. All right. So the first supplement that you want to talk about, what do you think is the most interesting to you?
There's so many.
I know.
Theanine. A lot of people don't really know about it. It's kind of a fun. It's a good one. It's amino acid that actually has been shown to help with. It's basically like we called it on at a flow state. So the idea that you can just do the thing. It's almost artistic. Whatever it is, you're in your zone. You're just clicking away at it, and everything's going great. That's what psychologists and people that are more on the spectrum when it comes to some of this stuff call flow state, and which is associated with alpha wave bands that happen in your brain. So right, just like all things, there's a charge in your brain, and as these things start to move around they create different wavelengths, and as the wavelengths change, they become different types. There's quite a few, but ultimately the ones you're really looking for are these alpha wavelengths that ultimately suggest that you're like really in a flow. So cool part about theanine is that it's pretty readily available, and it exists in tea. A lot of people find it in tea. And the really, really cool part about it is that if you combine it with caffeine, you can actually lower your dose of caffeine, and you can still experience a lot of the attention and benefits of that from the theanine caffeine combination. So instead of drinking, 200 milligrams of caffeine, you can actually drink, I think the research suggests 100 milligrams of theanine and 50 milligrams of caffeine and still have a pretty productive day. I'm a really big fan of it. If you take it by itself, it's about a 200 milligram dose, and you're looking at, a calm focus is ultimately how I want to describe it. So it's not really an upper, it's not really a downer, but it's just kind of like it evens the keel of the ship depending on how it's rocking. And see, if you drink tea like me, you'd be fine. And again, everything that we rattle out down this list as we go through it can be bought on Amazon by itself. You don't have to go find some special multi-ingredient Qualia, Alpha Brain. There are thousands of them out there now. But ultimately, you can buy all of these individual ingredients apart from each other. And then if you want, you can start to stack them to see how it goes, much like a pre-workout. But again, going back to our previous statement at the beginning of this, be extremely careful when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So theanine is pretty cool, and it's not anything crazy or out there. Like I said, it exists in tea, and it works pretty well. So that's a fun one to start with that no one really thinks about.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
I'll just rattle some off, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
Caffeine, obviously. I mean, we don't have to talk that much about it. You probably drank caffeine before you listened to this. I know I drank caffeine before I did this, twice. Anyway, and then while filming. And so basically, right, everyone knows the way caffeine works. You can definitely feel it at almost an immediate effect. Again, like I said earlier, you don't need that much of it to help improve your mood. If you're one of those people who's kind of then just a little bit of it's going to help you raise your mood in general. But if you want to start getting into performance stuff, that's when we start looking at somewhere between about 100 milligrams of caffeine at the bottom to, we see physical performance start to improve at about 200 milligrams, depending. The sweet spot for physical performance is about 3 milligrams per kilogram. Yep, per kilogram of body weight. So you can kind of judge off of that where you need to be. That puts about a 220-pound person at about 300 milligrams. So you can play with that as needed. Yeah, one bang, really quick.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do. So right, caffeine's kind of a no-brainer. Take it as you need it. Just know that you're probably already addicted to it, and you may need a little bit more. So that's a fun one. If you want to go, like I said, down that list again, we talked about some mechanisms earlier. Alpha GPC and Cognizin have some good research suggesting that, especially with the Cognizin one, and that is a branded type of choline package. I forgot what the type of choline is though. But anyway, so about 250 milligrams of that has actually been shown to help promote focus in women. Actually, one of the few studies that's actually done in women. So woo, one for the
nobody does research in women. I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, I mean, you that person might be dead. So yeah, you might be the only one.
Probably am.
So again, you can kind of feed that front end. Again, Huperzine A was one that we kind of talked about. It's kind of it's one of the more fun, traditional Chinese medicine versions that actually helps, get rid of the break of acetylcholine. So it helps firing of the nerves a little longer. Again, if you start to stack these things, be aware that there could be an exponential effect as you build the pipeline, right? So those are some fun ones, and then we can get into those are some more immediate ones, and then we can talk about Roliola rosea, right? I did that was part of one of
we published together that one, right?
Were you on that?
Yeah,
were you on that?
I think so.
No, that was yeah. Oh, yeah. Good for you. Good for us. I don't even know who's on my papers.
I did all the blood draws. Remember the rugby player passed out on me? He was 240 pounds. I was like, someone get this man a cookie.
Big man falling. Big tree falls hard. But anyway, so that's been shown to not only help physical performance, but also it's kind of a middle one. So there are a few of these ingredients I'm going to talk about that help cognitive performance, but also can help with stress a little bit. They're called adaptogens. Some of the main ones that play into that are Roliola, Ashwagandha, lemon balm's one, Valerian Root is another one. And Valerian Root's more of a downer than a calmer than an actual adaptogen, but at least in the way I look at it. But so Roliola has been shown to help with anti-stress or anti mental fatigue. So it's a pretty good one. You need about 200 milligrams of that is what the research suggests. But I did find one recently that would suggest you can cut that in half. So yeah, there's that. If you want physical performance, you're going to need somewhere between 200 to 400 milligrams of it. As we continue down the list, getting into more of the stress area, lemon balm, as was mentioned earlier, that's a great one. That's actually been shown to help with improved mathematical performance, right? With less mistakes. At about 300 milligrams.
Too bad they didn't have it when you were in school.
They still call me Dr. Brittany.
Me too. I can't do basic math.
It's overrated.
It is.
So that's been shown to help calm people, but also help improve cognitive performance as well, which is pretty cool. That is definitely one that, as we talked about with, you can overstimulate yourself, you can overdown yourself. So, grogginess, lack of alertness also can be associated with that. So be aware of that. Valerian root is a great one that has been shown to kind of help you chill out, but also help you kind of go to sleep.
Yeah.
So if you look at a lot of those nighttime teas, if you look at a lot of the sleep support types of supplements, those are the things that will actually do that for you. So Valerian root's another one. A cool one that was kind of cool and that was really cool, and then it's not cool or kind of not cool, whatever is, people are over it, is CBD. So CBD was really cool originally, right? Because it's part of pot, so it could be illegal. Well, it's not, and it's kind of gone back and forth. CBD has kind of a weird. It's like the last stand out of the Wild West of the supplement world, especially because we developed it so quickly. There are two main problems with it. One was that the reason that there was a big kind of pushback, especially from the government, it wasn't the fact that, the man was trying to hold us down. It was the idea that CBD isolate, so if we take the compound out of the plant and just make a whole bunch of the compound, was actually shown to work in a drug research project. So if we have a drug research project that shows that the thing works before we have a regular, natural intervention, CBD isolate is now a drug. That's why if you look on the market, even things that say CBD on them are actually hemp extracts.
Huh.
So it's not just or 9 times out of 10. Again, 9 times out of 10. And they'll call out CBD, but the way the kind of, it's worked out between the FDA and the regulating bodies is that CBD isolate is the problem. It's not the hemp extract. Yeah. Now, with hemp extract comes potentially THC, so you have to be aware of that.
Sam mentioned that, and I think he said that because of that, a lot of the effects that you would normally see with hemp extract and CBD, whatever, you would have to take the whole bottle to see. So
yeah, that is one of the things. So a lot of the research that's been done, the smallest dose I've seen to work for anything that comes with CBD is 300 milligrams. Now, if you look at most of the bottles and stuff like that, it is like 25 milligrams a hit. So if CBD costs, like a bottle costs $100, and you have a 30-day supply of 25 to 50 milligram hits, probably not worth the dollars yet. That's not me hating on the industry. Again, there's research that would support it. You just have to be extremely aware when you're, counting dollars and cents, that if you want CBD to cool you out, I just rattled off 2 things above it that potentially have, the same effect, but at a much smaller, money dosing. So that's just something to think about. Yeah. So yeah, those are 3. So I did 3. Did I do 3 uppers? Yep. Yes. Those are 3 downers.
Yep.
And now longevity stuff. Again, we talked about things that have kind of a anti-inflammatory, DNA support claims. Cat's claw is one of them. It's a herb that grows in the rainforest. So there's another fun one. It's out of the rainforest. It's got to be good for you.
Natural.
Yeah, all natural, all natural. But so cat's claw is one that's gotten a lot of love for cellular support, especially for brain stuff. DHA, so fish oil. fish oil gets a lot of love. You gotta give the brain and nerves and cells building blocks. DHA has been shown to have some really good responses. And actually, the two together, right? EPA and DHA, right? Wrong. Yep. My brain's just a cluster. I'm just grabbing letters out of the air and hoping that they come out to be a thing. They actually take them apart, and I believe that DHA has actually been shown, like on its own, has been shown to actually help improve signs of mood. So you can actually take them apart. But all that being said, I strongly suggest you take them together in the fish oil pill or the krill oil pill and experience, the more holistic response to that supplement. Again, that can be at the gram dose. Krill oil actually has been shown to have a little higher affinity than fish oil, which is pretty cool in a lot of studies. So I'm a big fan of krill oil, but either way, it's still going to smell like fish, and you're still going to taste it if you burp. So I don't know what to tell you.
Glorious.
So again, that's a great, kind of longevity support one. We talked a little, or at least on your list, creatine was one that, my baby creatine. So I always got to plug it in somewhere.
I still take it every day.
I do too, like a drug. It's stupid. Like if a day without creatine is a day without sunshine. That's what I look at it.
Yeah, you literally won't live. Yeah.
I'll just stop.
Yeah.
So it's actually been shown to help support neural processing. There was a big article about it, especially for those who are potential stroke victims, that, right, a stroke is basically a cutting off of oxygen to the brain for a short amount of time, and part of the brain dies. Fact check me on all this before you post it.
Yeah. You're doing great.
But basically the idea is that it allows the systems to run a little bit smoother and thus protects it, right? Also, creatine's been taken pretty far into interventions for things like Huntington's disease. I know that we're not supposed to talk about, clinical populations and stuff like that when we talk about supplements, but when research is being done on these individuals, we have to talk about it in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of the things that we find are ultimately start with those who are in a clinical population. So it's kind of like the ground breakthrough thing for creatine. Everyone thinks of it as some meathead supplement that you only take to get stronger or run faster, but actually it's been shown to support multiple systems in your body.
Yeah. There's
which is pretty cool
stuff like kids with ADHD, all kinds of, like you said, Alzheimer's. There's some great stuff. Even in there's a lot of military work with mental acuity and creatine and being able to stay sharp when you're fatigued, physically fatigued. So pretty cool stuff with creatine.
Yeah. So, I mean, those three in each category. That was pretty quick.
Yeah. So,
and
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's so many of these supplements, but and the cool thing about it is that a lot of supplement companies, like you came from Onnit, have started, and I guess like I would call it like a stack, where they put these together in a safe way and then they market it as one big product or supplement rather than individual supplements. So I would love to dig a little bit into some of those that, like I know we've already mentioned a couple times, the Alpha Brain one. So if like you could talk about what's in it maybe, and then the effects that you were able to see with those supplements, or you have noted and researched that supplement, that research has shown.
Yeah. So right, let's take a step back and talk about kind of multi-ingredient supplements in general. You see it a lot with pre-workouts. You see it a lot with gut health stuff. You see it a lot with, and now nootropics is kind of like the new spot to plug in. And what's the super secret, thing that we shook up in the back that makes you,
Limitless,
basically, like Bradley Cooper. so the idea is that, again, we want to try to combine these things based on different processes to amplify whatever we're going for. You'll see it, and then you'll see it on the bottle, right? The claim is, improve performance, improve cognitive health, just down the line. Hopefully not improved, because that would be, against regulation. But anyway,
may improve.
So
that's what we'll say.
So as you go through it, a lot of those things are supported in some way, shape, or form through basically the dosing that they put together. Some groups will actually just straight tell you what's in it, right? 5 milligrams of that, 400 milligrams of this, and down the line. And some people have the proprietary blend. So, right, some people get weird about the proprietary blend thing. Some companies get weird about the open label thing. It just kind of depends on how you want. Now, whichever side of the game you fall on, there's probably a supplement for it. Again, this is a growing industry. It's a booming industry, and chances are good that one of these are going to, suit your taste. So just look on the back, see what you like, see what you don't. So after that, you're going to see very similar claims along, right? Those that help with sleep, those that help with stress management, those that help with, focus. And then it kind of switches over to those that help with, cognitive performance, those that help with attention, those that help with, reaction time, those kind of things. And so they kind of get pulled apart from each other. I have yet to see one where they have pooled them together, right? Spring break rules, don't mix uppers and downers. So depending on which way you want to go, choose one, right? And then note that those ingredients in there are going to, one, definitely be associated with those claims, but there's something in there that drives the claim that's on the label. You shouldn't have a claim on the label that isn't substantiated in some way, shape, or form in research, whether that be your own or through like a branded ingredient. Like ashwagandha is one we kind of talked about, is an adaptogenic herb that kind of helps with your body. There's a lot of research that by two different groups who have two different types of ashwagandha extract, and so they kind of really rest their claims in the company's research. But you also want to make sure that as you dig through it, that the company's research supports the rest of research, right? You don't want to cherry pick a study and say, oh, ashwagandha works, and then all of a sudden have 10 that say that it definitely doesn't do that. So there's either something magically special about where this ashwagandha comes from or this process, or they're lying. So yeah, and people lie in research, as we have found. Yeah. So just be aware, right? Don't just pick one and hope that it plays out. So that's kind of how you got to play the game. Now, as you look at more of the cognitive performance side and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of people that seem to just like throw all of the ingredients that could potentially have that claim with it. I'm pretty sure the quality of pack is like 9 pills to take or something like that. It's some ungodly amount of pills that you actually need to take to get the full dose.
Yeah.
And it's expensive, so that's exciting. But so just be aware of that, and also be aware of like, what the rest of, maybe the other groups have also suggested. So if we look at the back and we see, right, just like with the ingredients list, whatever's first is going to have the most of it, and then goes down the proprietary blend. But also see like, do these doses line up with people who are making similar other claims? Like that's a quick and dirty way to do research right there, standing looking at the shelf. And again, most people aren't going to try to like, they're not some group with like a shiny skull on the front that says anarchy on it, and it's all that stuff. Most of these things are, are companies that are just trying to help you perform. They're not trying to melt your face. So I'm not going to say that they're light or, ill-tempered or whatever, but ultimately it's probably going to be pretty down the line, especially if it's in a big box store like Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to kind of be aware of it. And then, like I said, I'm a much bigger fan of kind of like figuring out where your sweet spot is, like my sweet spot, your sweet spot, whoever's sweet spot. Find the one that you like the most and then start with that. Again, theanine's really, really cool, really easy, and really cheap. And if you take that with your cup of coffee in the morning, that may be all you need, because then you have your chill, calm focus, you have some energy from caffeine, and you have polyphenols for longevity, and you basically just made a stack, and all you did was take one pill of one thing and drink a cup of coffee.
Yeah, interesting.
So, supplementation through nutrition is beautiful. So things like that. Don't get too starstruck by literal celebrities endorsing stuff. The longer ingredient list does not necessarily mean a better ingredient list. You got to find what bangs for you. And then again, experiment by all means. I'm a big fan of it, but just be aware that there's potentially a cheaper, more simplistic way to achieve the same thing that you're going for immediately. If you want to sit there and tout that you take 600 milligrams of CBD a day, fine by me. Just know that it's probably going to cost $50 a hit. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of where all that lives. So just be aware.
Yeah. So what about some of the bigger stackers? Like I would like to talk about Alpha Brain and stuff like that, and what research says about that, or what's substantiated, if it is substantiated, or if you should just go simple. Because I remember from our research together, we did a little bit of stuff with pre-workout supplements in the past, like 2015 or something. And we picked apart all the major pre-workout supplements at that time, looked at all the ingredients within those supplements to see what research substantiated for performance-related outcomes and strength and things like that. And basically what we found is that more often than not, the ingredients weren't substantiated in the research, and that you should just stick to the 4 simple ones, which were, caffeine, creatine, beta-alanine, BCAAs, whatever. But is that the case with this too? Is this like just a money market where organizations or companies are just trying to put together this supplement that people are going to buy into because there's a whole list of ingredients? Or is there one like Alpha Brain or something else that actually really could be helpful?
Right. So there's like 4 ways to start with that question. So basically, let's start with this. So like in all supplements, it's going to have a driver. We looked at pre-workouts. That was that study. And if we looked at it, one way to look at it was, yes, there were a lot of ingredients that really didn't have a lot of substantiation behind it. But if you put those stacks back together, right, there was always one ingredient that would drive the entirety of the claim. 9 times out of 10 with a pre-workout, it's caffeine, right? Because caffeine does all. We've already discussed it. In between caffeine, creatine, and beta-alanine, you're good to go, right? And then you can put whatever you want else in it, right? So you'll find that same kind of process in a lot of these other multi-ingredient whatevers. So whether it be longevity, mental performance, stress, something along that line, there's going to be a driver which holds the claim on the bottle, or there should be, and then there's going to be and there's basically going to be supportive ingredients. Yeah. So, and these other supportive ingredients can either be, linked to the fact that people are looking for lion's mane online. I'm not going to tell people that you need to take 3 grams of lion's mane for like a month and then it might help you, right? I'm just going to put it on the label and know that people are looking for it. So those are considered supportive ingredients, with the idea that there's some synergistic coolness that if you don't take the entirety of it, but you take a bunch of little parts of little different things, it's ultimately going to bring the thing up. So that's the first thing. If we have one ingredient that supports the entirety of all the claims that are being made on that bottle, we're good to go in the eyes of the FDA. Now, how great the thing is, I don't know, right? Because there are so many things out there to try, and I don't have that kind of time. So that's one way to kind of look at it. So again, there could be a lot of different ingredients on there, but there's going to be one in the bottle that does the thing, or there should be. Two, there are companies that will run research on their stuff, whether it be individualized ingredients like specific extracts of, herbs or something along that line, or the entirety of the bottle if it's multi-ingredient, supplement. Onnit was very good about doing clinical research on their ingredients, on their products. Brittany and I worked on one, and then she obviously helped me on my dissertation, which was cordyceps and rhodiola. And there was actually ashwagandha in that thing too, which may explain the decrease in cortisol that we saw, but we didn't talk about it in the discussion.
Would have been so good.
Oh no, it would have been another 10 pages that I would have had to write and support, and I didn't want to do that.
That's it.
Yeah. Send it. But anyway, so some companies do run research on their products. Again, Onnit was very good about it. They have run research on technically three, one being Alpha Brain. Now, what needs to be said about that is when you change a formula in any way, shape, or form, if you take something out of it, you can no longer rest on that clinical study. So if I have a super secret sauce of 4 ingredients and I test it against the placebo, right, golden standard, and then it shows that I, remembered more words or symbols or whatever than the placebo group did, that clinical study stands in research until I decide to take one of those ingredients out. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, I can't necessarily prove that my product, Dr. Vince's special brain sauce, works because of the fact that I remove something, and the idea that there could be a synergistic effect is fantastic. But it also kind of bones you on the back end if you're a research group. For that reason, a lot of people, especially in the industry, are kind of shaky when it comes to clinical research because products are always changing. More research is always coming out about different ingredients, whether it be safety issues versus better ways to perform, ways that you may want to adjust the formula in some way, shape, or form. And research is expensive, as you know, mm-hmm. and the company is going to have to pay for that price tag. So if there are multiple commas in that, or multiple, placeholders in that, price tag, that's not going to be the best investment if they always have to change something over. So there are a few people that have, landmark stuff that sticks with their group. That's like, look, this stuff works. It's great. Whether that be internally facing or externally facing. Now, if we go back to that Alpha Brain study, Alpha Brains changed their makeup a little bit, so they can no longer rest on that clinical study. But if you look at that study, you're going to see a very similar effect of what huperzine A does in I think it was young students that had like a learning problem or something along that line. Again, improved scores in learning, improved scores in learning in huperzine A, which is pretty cool. And in Alpha Brain, they did it in adults, and again, they did it with children with huperzine extract. So that lines up now all of a sudden. Now we're starting to see, okay, an increase in learning performance over here, an increase in learning performance of one of the ingredients, and now we have, a synergy amongst the research. It may not be, extremely in depth, but as you start to connect those dots in one way, shape, or form, you begin to, create a much better story. We saw that there was a learning effect in this. We saw that teacrine can help you, cool out when it comes, not teacrine, theanine, can help you cool out when it comes to your day, help promote that like calm focus that we're putting together. And then we put in some other ingredients to help support just brain health in general. And all of a sudden we've got a really sweet thing like Alpha Brain. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how they play that whole game out.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on how, I don't want to call them legit, but legit the company is, how much, right? It's ultimately putting your money where your mouth is.
That's it.
Because
Okay,
it's a bet.
so in that vein, I am curious, Vince, with all your research, if you were to make your own big stack, what would it be? Like, what would your perfect stack look like?
The perfect stack. My perfect optimal brain performance.
You probably need a lot. Just letting you know.
A shot of adrenaline right in the leg. So it'd probably be something along the lines of it be 100 grams, goodness, 100 milligrams of theanine, 50 to 100 grams of caffeine, put in 250 milligrams of cognizin. Again, I forget what that's called on the basic level. And then, I mean, that would be like the main body of the stack. And then maybe if I really wanted to go a little bit further and look at it more systemically, put in probably about 500 milligrams of ashwagandha, just because I'm a little bigger, but I think down to 250 milligrams of ashwagandha from a branded ashwagandha called Sensoril, was shown to help support chronic stress. And then note to self, you can fit about 750 milligrams of stuff in a pill. So just letting you know. So for those of you who are getting ready to, put all this together and sell it yourself, that you're just going to have to work out how many pills you're going to need. Yeah. So yeah, it probably looks something pretty similar to that.
Yeah. Which comes back to what we were talking about before. It's not too much. There are a couple ingredients. You don't need to get fancy with it. Stick with the main four. Maybe drink some coffee to start, and you have a really good nootropic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
and then take your krill oil in the middle of the day. Take your vitamins in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And then double down with the pre-workout before you go slam your weights, and you're done. Day's over.
You're good. And living a long life that is up when it needs to be up and down when it needs to be down.
That's right.
Forever.
Appropriately supported.
Yes. Love it. Well, Vince, I am, of course, happy to reconnect, and you gave such great information. And I of course have the ability to connect with you. So if there's any questions from listeners or anything like that, I'll just shoot them your way and tell them to talk to the professional over here.
The professional. Who would have thought? Yeah, no, that's great. It's been fantastic talking with you today. It's, again, great to reconnect as always. It's always good to see old friends. And yeah, it was fun. I love doing this kind of stuff. So
yeah, same.
Thanks for having me on, and I hope someone learned something today.
For sure. Guys, you have got to check out my brand new book entitled Through His Strength by Improving Ours Family. This faith-based family study is dedicated to improving the health of the family unit. And on top of this book, I've also created a health leader guide where groups of adults can get together and share different ways that you can approach health-related conversations in the family unit. My book is available on Amazon and other e-book publishers, and all of the other information is available on my website, www.drbrittanyRallman.com. That's www.drbrittanyRallman.com.